The ancient and beautiful city of Verona is the third most popular tourist destination in northern Italy, after Florence and Venice. Tourists stroll its ancient streets and view magnificent historic monuments and antiquities. 2,000 years ago, gladiators fought against each other and against animals in its amphitheatre. Today, it's the top tourist attraction and home of Verona's annual opera festival. Another popular tourist destination is the private graveyard of the Della Scala family, rulers of Verona for 125 years, beginning in 1262. The tomb of Francesco della Scala has a stone coffin, supported by sculptures of dogs holding the family coat of arms. Above the coffin, Francesco is depicted on his deathbed. Crowning the tomb is a statue of Francesco astride his horse. Though this is a copy, the original was moved to a museum to protect it from weathering. Competing for the most popular attraction is a heavily remodeled 14th century townhouse, with a balcony that was only added in 1936. According to tradition, this was the setting for Shakespeare's fictional love story, Romeo and Juliet, published in 1597. Shakespeare based his play on an original story by Italian writer Luigi da Porta, who claimed that it was based on actual historic events. After her death, Juliet was supposedly placed in this sarcophagus, now empty, in the crypt of a former Capuchin friary, now a museum. Of course, very few Veronese were buried in private cemeteries or monasteries. Since the 1800s, most lie in the spectacular, public, Monumental Cemetery of Verona. It's an easy walk from the city centre, but few tourists visit here, which is a shame, as there's amazing art and architecture in Verona's Monumental Cemetery. By 1800, Napoleon Bonaparte had conquered most of Italy, and in 1806, the Napoleonic Edict of Saint-Cloud was extended to the Italian peninsula. This radically changed regulations dealing with the disposal of the dead. To promote better sanitation and hygiene, it prohibited burials in churches and churchyards within the city limits, and ordered the construction of burial grounds a minimum distance from inhabited areas, in well-ventilated places surrounded by walls at least 2 meters high. Cemeteries would be owned and operated by municipal rather than church authorities. They would welcome people of all religions, and none. Out of respect for the equality of citizens, all would be welcomed regardless of social status or wealth. Tombstones would be standardized, with uniform inscriptions, special permission required for more distinctive tombs. Verona officials took 2 decades to select a suitable site for the new cemetery, which was located in the Camp Marzo area, on the other side of the Adige River. It separated the city of the living from the city of the dead. By the time they began building the cemetery in 1828, Napoleon had been defeated, and Verona was again under Austrian rule. Many of Napoleon's burial requirements were ignored. The original layout was a large but not extensive square with 2 curved wings. It was designed by architect Giuseppe Barbieri, who was influenced by the first Italian monumental cemetery of the 19th century, established in Brescia in 1815. He was also inspired by Roman and Greek architecture. The symmetrical layout has 2 main pathways that divide the cemetery into quadrants. The midpoint of each is marked by a large building with Doric columns called a pantheon. The Resurrection Pantheon is the main entrance to the cemetery, as well as being a repository for the deceased. 3 statues adorn its crest: an angel in the center, history on the left, and justice on the right. The facade has 2 veiled, mourning women sitting beside a vase covered with a funeral cloth. The original statues were damaged by bombs during the Second World War, along with other parts of the cemetery. Repairs and restorations were not completed until the 1960s. 2 lions guard the entrance. One is awake and represents resurrection. The other sleeps and symbolizes death. Just inside the entrance is a series of friezes that depict Jesus healing the sick and raising the dead. Another pantheon houses the mortuary chapel. 2 other buildings commemorate notable people who were born or lived in Verona, and those who significantly benefited the city and its inhabitants. The facade of each pantheon is decorated with angel wings that represent spirituality, freedom, and the bonds between heaven and earth. The cemetery was still under construction when the first burial took place in 1829. The tombs of the rich are mainly in the porticos and colonnades, where they are protected from bad weather and can be easily seen. Rich families spent small fortunes creating elaborate monuments to commemorate their deceased loved ones. Here we see a procession of young girls descending a sacred building, while 2 girls pray at the tomb of Carolina Dolci, a young child. Gaetano Dolci, perhaps her father, is portrayed in the medallion on the side of the sarcophagus. 2 female figures with implements representing industry and agriculture sit at the base of the private chapel of the owner of a tax collection agency, Luigi Trezza. He's depicted at the point of death with a crucifix in his hands. Giulio Camosoni was a lawyer. As mayor of Verona for 16 years, he supervised the erection of barriers to prevent the Adige River overflowing. Pietro Zenati was a leading patriot who resisted the Austrian occupation of Verona. Though the monument's luster has been dulled by years of accumulated dust, like many other tombs, this is one of the most expensive monuments in the cemetery. Scipione Zozzi is depicted lying on his funeral bed as his widow leans towards her dead husband. The Allegri Zorzi family spent €290,000 in today's money on this magnificent tomb. This monument is one of many created by one of Verona's most notable artists, Ugo Zanoni. In 1880, he was commissioned by Count Giovanni Erbisti to fashion this elaborate monument for his wife, Maria Smania, who is shown sick, surrounded by her son and two daughters. Zanoni created this monument for Callisto Zorzi, a building contractor who progressed from earning a meagre living as an unskilled worker to establishing his own construction company and amassing an immense fortune. He is shown handing a coin to two small children, highlighting his charitable reputation. Zanoni portrayed Antonio Zanella, an engineer and mathematician, reading plans he used when he spent more than 20 years directing the reclamation of waterways in the province of Verona and elsewhere. Zanoni crafted this plaque to commemorate the death of cousins and artists Giuseppe Zanoni and Marcello Rancani, who fell from scaffolding while working on a fresco. It must have been especially poignant for Zanoni to work on this tomb for his deceased mother. He acquired the space for the tomb in exchange for one of his sculptures. A medallion showing Zanoni in old age was added to his mother's monument after he died in Verona in 1919. Most of the dead rest in less expensive graves, outside and along the pathways that skirt and crisscross the cemetery. This sculpture for the Sartori family was created by Eugenio Prati, another artist from Verona. This figure was inspired by Auguste Rodin's iconic statue of a man lost in thought, perhaps contemplating life and death. The tomb dedicated to the Cavalier Teodoro de Mel is also reminiscent of Rodin's thinker, though it expresses greater anguish. Many monuments display photographs of the deceased. Some families have opted to store the ashes of their loved ones in urns in columbaria in the colonnades. The inscription on Alessandro Orti's columbarium says, "From nothing, he returned to nothing." A 3/4 portrait adorns the columbarium of Giacomo dell'Acqua, who fought in the Italian Wars of Independence, which led to the unification of Italy. Most of the less well-off are buried in plots marked by simple gravestones, and sections are reserved for priests, brothers and sisters of religious organizations. Though the rich could afford to purchase a perpetual lease for space in the cemetery, most burial spaces were leased for specific periods. After the lease expires, cemetery authorities may reclaim the plot for reuse. As the population of Verona grew, the demand for more burial plots increased. In 1910, the cemetery was extended and doubled in size, with new colonnades and graves. This fine tomb in the so-called New Cemetery commemorates Giuseppe Antonio Fedrigoni, who, in 1888, refounded the family paper mills in Verona, which had been started in Trento in 1753. The tomb is titled Vincit Labor, Work Wins. One of the marble females represents Mercury, exemplifying commerce, while the other represents industry. The Perenelli tomb has two beautiful bronze statues of women. One bows her head in mourning, while the other seeks consolation from the heavens. In 1935, the Ossuary Temple was added in the new cemetery to house the remains of 4,000 soldiers who fell during the First World War. A garden cemetery was also added in the 1930s. It has small family chapels built by middle-class families. Statues of women are frequently favoured by families and artists, and shown in a variety of guises. This touching Vallotto family monument, with a female gently cradling the head of a dead woman, has an inscription that says, "May descendants watch over you." Romeo Delana's deceased wife, Giovanna, is depicted on the plaque. Romeo's overwhelming grief is dramatically illustrated by the distraught female slouched across the white marble tomb. The Dalfume family tomb has a bronze statue painted black depicting a woman, symbolizing the agony suffered by those who lose a loved one to death. This bronze statue of a son clinging to his deceased mother as she strains to leave Earth's confines is intensely sensuous. Images of Mary embracing her crucified son Jesus are creatively replicated on several tombs. Depictions of angels are also seen on several monuments. Noblewoman Giulia Piedemonte Moscardo is depicted being comforted as she draws her final breath in 1898. We have made several videos about 19th century burial grounds, most of which are lush garden cemeteries with lovely monuments on meandering pathways. Our first visit to one of Italy's monumental cemeteries was a pleasant surprise, not for its beautiful scenery or even for its illustrious dead, but for the outstanding monuments in this impressive open-air art gallery.